Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
No matter how hard William tried, he did not make the rounds until 9 o'clock. The process was in full swing when an unknown herald shouted down the hallway for everyone to go to the convention hall for a meeting. Immediately, the slamming of doors was heard, and generally everything in the ward went into motion. William cast a disgruntled glance at the clock, and the young nurse Maria looked devotedly into the doctor's eyes. "William, maybe the main thing won't keep you too long. I don't think it's necessary to make rounds every day. We can do it every other day." This sweet girl had just joined the ward a few months ago, straight out of medical school. She tried to please everyone, but she didn't always succeed. The older employees were critical of ingratiation and did not condone this behavior from the young female employee. Dr. William was also irritated by the girl's rash suggestions, and he quickly put her in her place. "Maria, keep your personal opinion to yourself and attend to your direct duties. And this is a medical facility, not an evening club." Maria was reprimanded in the men's ward and instantly blushed with the excitement of the story, the illness, and in the girl's hands interrupted with increasing frequency of vibrations. Though William immediately regretted having offended the nurse, who was well respected by the patients. But it was too late to retreat. He left the room and walked briskly toward the elevator, where a line of medical personnel was already lined up. On the faces of people in white coats sparkled smiles, and the main topic while waiting for the underground device was the upcoming professional holiday. The group waiting was joined by a senior nurse from their department. "Hello everyone, I can give you all an update. Verified sources tell me that a bonus is expected tonight." This news was especially welcome by the women's section, and some of the men have commented that it's gonna be a pittance. They'd better use the money to renew the fleet. On this old iron, it is impossible to drive speed. Signs are afraid that at the exit, there will be a breakdown or an accident. Then who's to blame? Of course, the medics themselves. William recognized the complainer as the chief mechanic, but the head nurse didn't even dignify that look. She threw the electrician a space. "Andrew, are you used to complaining about everything? This is not right for you, and this is wrong. If you took less out of the garage, you wouldn't have a problem. You're forgetting things pretty fast. What were the conditions at the old hospital?" That was a fair point, and it was hard to argue against. Even the chief mechanic stared at the mosaic floor, and only his noisy breathing indicated disagreement with the head nurse's opinion. Indeed, the district hospital of Villanova, when William had moved in a little over 2 years ago, had been in good standing in the region. For a small provincial town of 20,000, this modern medical complex, built as part of a pilot project, was a luxury. But since serious money had been spent on the construction of this facility, the demands on this healthcare facility were orders of magnitude higher than on other regional units. The hospital staff, at least most of it, simply did their jobs properly. Only the chief physician Ethan, or Ethan in the common people, realized the importance of his mission. After all, he had been at the helm of the old hospital for almost 16 years and hoped that he would last about that long in the new complex as well, so that his personal plans would not be thwarted. Ethan, as a very responsible manager and a good organizer day and night, cared about the reputation of the entrusted institution. And to stimulate the team, Ethan used a simple but effective means of 5-minute meetings. The regular meeting, which was held on the eve of the Day of Medical Workers, the chief physician began with a pompous introduction. "Dear colleagues, on the eve of the professional holiday, I must inform you that we have a great responsibility for the health of present and future generations." Ethan had an unassuming appearance, and he was not tall either. But God had endowed this ambitious man with vivid oratory skills. He intuitively felt where to emphasize and where to stop. He did not change these rules this time. After a short but impressive introduction, Ethan took a long pause and looked around the room. The audience responded to this message with scant applause. Ethan hustled beautifully, threw fleeting glances at the outline of his speech, and added some more pathos to his presentation. "Friends, my dear colleagues, citizens entrust us with their most valuable health, and our main task is to justify this trust. And you and I have everything we need to achieve this goal. After all, we are lucky to work in this beautiful complex, where the advanced equipment and comfortable conditions for our patients. A light murmur of those who were unable to restrain their emotions swept through the hall. Michael, who before the beginning of the meeting could not find a suitable place for himself for a long time, and then settled down next to William, also said in a half voice, giving up and almost not even looking at the cheat sheet, "Our Ethan is clearly on a roll today. He'll probably be on our ears for an hour and a half." William looked longingly at his neighbor and sighed heavily. William was not in the mood for congratulations and festive fanfare because he had 2 scheduled surgeries today, so he was not happy. And after a brief hesitation, he decided to share it with a colleague. "Michael, imagine that I came in an hour early today on purpose, that I didn't even have time to make my rounds, and I have surgery on Friday. Of course, Medical Professionals Day is a good time for everyone to get together. But why all the talk?" Michael, imitating Ethan, with feeling whispered, "You don't understand, William. Without regular meetings, our hospital will collapse and there may be a flood." Michael's intonation and his facial expression made William smile, forgetting his caution. He said rather loudly to Michael, "That's a good one you got there. You should go to the thoroughbreds with all sides on them for chick," or Michael cheerfully picked up on the idea. "William, I will definitely think about your suggestion when I get kicked out of here." Those sitting nearby reacted to this version of the young surgeon with sackcloth, and Ethan sent an angry glance from the top of the podium right into the epicenter of the fun. Unfortunately, not everyone sitting in the audience realizes the importance of the moment. Some are having a lot of fun, and I want to say that we do not keep in these walls those who treat their work as a craft that allows you to earn a piece of bread. The chief doctor did not even suspect that with this statement he awakened slumbering talents of folk humor. Some medical workers, neglecting the importance of the moment, moved from experience to communicate in a higher tone and began to offer different gastronomic delights instead of a piece of bread. Bread is good with crust and butter. With oysters you can also dabble sometimes, and bread in a slice is not blue tuna in sauce with white trophies, is better than a crust of bread. You could add something stronger. The baton was picked up by someone in the front row, and on it went. Frogs, tea, French fries with lobster. A fisherman's fever gripped the audience, and the body doctor in charge, unsuccessfully trying to get his attention back. "Fellow coworkers, but you can't be so casual about what you're doing. We still have a report for the semester, and then a concert of amateur art, which specially prepared for the holiday are cultural workers." Probably the last argument brought the audience to its senses, and the hall calmed down a little. But the chief doctor decided not to leave without attention the outrageous facts of violation of discipline, which almost jeopardized his performance. "On this pre-holiday day, I am deeply regretful to note that there are still some individuals among us who are balking at the awareness of others." Michael darted his eyes away. Where did our Edichinov go to stir the conscience? That's an amazing turn of phrase. I would never have thought to put the 2 words together. The connoisseur of the back row whispered, "If it came to such creative word combinations, it means that our chief is exhausted." Now he will read out the list of the best personnel, give bonuses to his deputies, and will not forget himself. In other words, everything is the same as always. It was possible not to bring the people together. Both William and Michael supported the author of this statement. And when the break was announced after the ceremonial part, they were the first to hurry to the exit of the head of the personnel department to the guards of the desk at the door. She had received orders from above to detain those who refused to leave the team, as physical methods were completely excluded. The woman shouted to everyone to stay in the hall. Whoever left the concert would not get a bonus. The crowd rushed back. Only the young surgeons confidently bypassed the caterer, who shouted resentfully after them, "Do you need a special invitation, or don't you want the money?" William turned around. "Don't yell, you're not at the fair. I have sick people waiting for me." Michael followed, muttering, "God, how annoying is this bureaucracy?" As time goes on, the bureaucratic guard only grows stronger. Michael said, imitating the head of the personnel department, "If you don't stay for the concert, we'll take away your bonus." For God's sake, eat up, don't bother. Michael's impromptu joke was a success, and William laughed heartily. Thank you, colleague. That's the first positive emotion of the day. You certainly have a hidden talent, and I'm truly sorry to see it go. The men said goodbye at the elevator, not forgetting to seal the budding alliance with a firm handshake as a sign of solidarity. In a few minutes, William was completely plunged into the cycle of daily cares. He completely forgot about the 5 minutes and the upcoming professional holiday. But in the evening, when he could hardly move his legs from fatigue in Sokol on the first floor, he met Michael again. Michael was talking to an unfamiliar elderly man and was very happy to see William. William, although I am not a fatalist, I am sure that our meeting again today was not a coincidence. After a busy day, I wanted to relax a little, and William was the first to suggest it. I think so too, which is why, Michael, you and I need to de-stress. It's against all the laws. For two objects to come together twice in a short period of time. Michael laughed. Yes, you and I. In fact, do not leave this point for 24 hours a day, so I do not see anything surprising. You know, I often think of the operating room as a kind of space capsule. Surgeons often don't leave the confines of this enclosed space for days at a time. I like your concept. It's very fresh and in the spirit of the times. Michael gave me a sly wink. Then maybe we could sit somewhere. What's your time constraints? Or is your wife against male company? William ironically remarked, no, I don't have a wife or any other aggravating obligations. So I'm happy to accept your offer, especially since it's a professional holiday. Then I'll take you, William, to my favorite restaurant. It's modest, but the food is excellent. I'm at your complete disposal. But let's use your first name. On the way to the restaurant with the romantic name of Blues, the men found a common topic of conversation. However, they were not discussing the current situation in the hospital, but remembered their carefree time as students. For his 30 years with an impressive tale, William has not once been in a situation where the interlocutor abused his attention. But his father had told him in his youth, "Son, a smart man can always listen to a fool." Michael did not fit this definition, though from the first minute of their joint meetings he bombarded William with a lot of different information. They had to politely agree or nod their heads for a change. But it was a pleasant moment of communication. Michael spoke with meaning and clarity. William, you don't even realize that you are in a real serpentarium. It is only from the outside that our hospital looks like a model healthcare institution. In reality, it can be a hot mess. To keep the conversation going, William languidly said, "It is not only in district hospitals. After the institute, I worked for almost 10 years, first in the diagnostic center, then in the regional surgery. And believe me, they are also ready to set up or eat their neighbors." Michael poured a little wine into the glasses. "You were lucky. And I fell into this cockroach. I decided my profession at school, and my mother worked in the city administration at that time. She did her best to make her son happy. That is, thanks to her diligence and connections. I got the target direction and got on the budget. I confess, I was wildly happy then luck, and did not suspect that this shiny metal backside cast in cast iron. In short, I realized that I had fallen into a trap. Only when it came to distribution, I had to return to the village, and there to raise medicine. I had other plans for my life." William hastened to reassure his comrades. "The hospital is a great place to practice medicine." Michael interrupted his companion. "It's more or less bearable here now. 8 years ago, it was a quiet horror and worse. The situation was in the rural nursing stations. My mother wrote me a voucher through the mediation of a village official. I didn't know you were dying. That's not a word. When I arrived at the dispensary, I almost fell apart. This building housed several departments and a polyclinic. There was a catastrophic lack of beds for heavy patients. Complex operations had to be done practically in the field. For the first 2 years, I could not wake up at all. You wouldn't believe it, but I wanted to run away anywhere, even to the North Pole, as long as I didn't have to go to work." A shadow of unpleasant memories ran across the young man's face. But in a second, Michael was smiling. "Perhaps I would have run away once if it hadn't been for love." They read about such cases in novels. Remember how in the poem Michael jumped up sharply for a second, losing his balance, but quickly regained his stability and beautifully spreading his arms and hands proclaimed, "And every evening at the hour appointed a maiden's moaning veins, seized by a misty, moving in the window." The surgeon's brief performance attracted the attention of the restaurant's diners. Michael received a standing ovation, as is proper for an entertainer, with a bow. William once again marveled at his colleague's acting ability. He wanted very much to tell Michael that he had obviously made a mistake in his choice of profession. But paragraph 2 of his father's rule book made him keep silent. This paragraph was about how not everything that comes to mind can be said out loud. William also applauded the nuggets from medicine. "Bravo, Michael. Did you manage to capture the mood the great poet wanted to convey?" It was obvious flattery, but Michael took the complimentary gesture for granted. "Although you exaggerate my abilities, it was a pleasure." He refilled the glasses again. "I'm sorry, but at this point, the traditional toast is called for." "I will." The man clinked his glass. William followed suit. "Can I ask you something indiscreet?" "Go ahead." Michael suddenly burst into laughter. As in fact, the conventions of the world have been sung at us. We agreed to drop the officiousness, but we're still getting into it. Anyway, William, ask a question, and don't be shy. And I will answer as sincerely as possible. William agreed. "I still don't understand how you got to V. Logjanov. To be honest, you intrigued me with your story. Everything is shrouded in mystery. The smile is gone from my lips. Men, no mystery. It's all my mommy's fault. One day she came and saw the conditions her son had to work in, and she pulled me out of the pit." And the stranger from Michael's poem continued to wield a knife and fork, because after a colorful performance and a portion of wine, he had awakened a beastly appetite. "I told you it was just like a novel. First we met, then a few months of lovemaking, but then it turned out that everyone drew a picture for himself, which has nothing to do with reality. Anyway, we went our separate ways without complaint. Sadly, I am immune to sentimentality, although you hit the mark, because this story really ended sadly. Mine drove off to an undisclosed location. I think she even got married, and then Michael rolled his eyes at the ceiling, and William asked her anxiously. She was in trouble. You could say that. My first love had passed away young and beautiful, and William's body felt a jolt of electricity. This reaction did not escape Michael's gaze. Has a similar tragedy happened in your life? Michael asked this question without any sign of sympathy. On the contrary, there was a certain satisfaction in his voice. I didn't want to continue the conversation. William hurried home and said the first thing that came into his head. "I'm sorry, I have a call with my parents soon. They always call me on Fridays." Michael was disappointed. That's how it is always when you find a common language with a person and circumstances interfere. As if to justify his escape, William said embarrassedly, "We'll have time to talk. Of course you go, and I'll stay a little longer, and then I'll go home to my wife and children." It didn't take me long to grieve alone. Shortly after the failed affair, I got married. Now I'm a respectable family man and father of 2 Ivans. My daughter is starting first grade in the fall. From Michael's tone, it was easy to guess that he cherished his family. William left the restaurant feeling a burning envy. The thoughts in his head were jumping and dreaming, making it hard to concentrate on any one thing. The condition was so unpleasant that William said in a low voice, "You need some air. It will help your nervous system." Too many impressions in one day. And back at the Institute, William often resorted to this tried and true method of exercise. William recommended it to him. Father evening coolness pleasantly envelops the body, not mixed step. William walked along the main street of the city, watching the passers-by. Not far from the city park, he noticed a girl of about 11 years old and looked at his watch. He wondered what a child was doing alone at such a late hour. But no sooner had William thought about the negligence of the girl's parents than a young woman ran up to her and began to talk animatedly about something. The girl nodded her head, and her 2 pigtails bounced funny. William thought that the mother was scolding her daughter for some offense. Soon both citizens were heading in the opposite direction from him. The man gave them a long, wistful look. I could have had a daughter about that age too. If only. He didn't want to remember the tragedy that had ruined his life so many years ago. The girl had been on his mind for some time, though he hadn't gotten a good look at her. But he noticed the mother snatching the basket of flowers from her daughter's hands, so preoccupied, not with cheerful thoughts. William wandered to the house where he had found temporary shelter, but a ringing silence awaited him there. The man even shuddered at the unpleasant sensation that reminded him of close contact with Medusa. It was in a distant childhood, when William had not yet gone to school. His parents had decided to recuperate their son before starting the busy school life. The trip to Miami tired the boys, and the father decided to go straight from the wheels to the sea. William was capricious, but the head of the family was adamant. Her son sat in the water, and all the moping will pass. But the first bathing brought not only disappointment, but also horror. William did not have time to move away from the shore, as to his feet touched something sticky and disgusting. He jumped out of the water with a scream and ran down the beach, frightened as much as his son. The father ran after him. "They're planks. Look how cute they are on his arm." Thomas flaunted the floor, a transparent, formless mass. A heart-rending scream erupted from the boy's chest, and he stumbled and ran even faster. It is not known how the first acquaintance with the sea and its inhabitants would have ended, had it not been for a chance witness of the chase. He blocked William's path and then lifted him in his arms. Thomas the stranger said condemningly, "Man, you must be out of your mind. How can you scare children like that? Is the kid shaking with terror?" The father tried to justify his unworthy behavior. "I didn't think he'd react this way to Medusa. I wanted my son to have a better experience. I should have prepared the boy beforehand. I've been afraid of them myself since I was a kid. My brother frightened me so much that my mother took me to my grandmother to talk me out of it. Of course, as I grew up, the fear passed, but the residue remained." The memory of that long-ago incident brought a sad smile, and William went up to his floor. The silence in the apartment was so thick and heavy that it reminded William of that unpleasant encounter with Medusa. To get rid of that feeling, the man turned on the lights in the room and hallway of Dr. Williams' studio apartment. The local authorities allocated as soon as he arrived. The keys to the accommodation were handed to him in a solemn ceremony at the planning meeting. And Ethan was as witty as ever. "Dear William, I want to believe that you will quickly join our friendly team, and our lair will become a home for you. And it's very symbolic that you'll be able to start a new happy life in a separate apartment. And remember, there are prospects for expansion." It was a hint that the newly arrived doctor would marry and have children. But more than 2 years have passed and William has not seen any major changes on the personal front. And he had no one to talk to except the television. The man looked longingly into the corner of the room, where a brand new plasma was majestically flaunting, and with a sigh he clicked the button on the remote control. Immediately a picture of someone else's life unfolded on the screen, and William bitterly muttered, "Hello, my friend. I have to spend the whole evening with you again, and I have a suspicion that for a few more years I will finally go off the rails." The man settled down on the sofa, which I had bought for nothing from an ad. He followed the plot of the detective series without interest, and the smiling Dr. Michael stood before his eyes. William again felt a prick of envy and whispered through his teeth. But for some reason, life is such that some people are lucky. Others have a lot of bad luck. Memory again brought up one of the clauses in my father's code of life. "William, never try to jump over yourself. It's like jumping from one pole to the other. You have to be content with what you have been given from above. But a clever person can stretch even a very meager supply over several days, while a fool can squander the whole supply in one sitting." As a child, William didn't understand his father's aphorisms. The guy managed to understand their secret meaning only in adolescence. And over the years, William began to notice one strange thing. In a difficult moment, his memory always gave him the right clue. On that summer evening, when he sat staring stupidly at the TV, it also told him in his father's voice that it was urgent to change something in his life. Relatives and close friends often made fun of Thomas. "Thomas, you are a strange person. You try to describe your life point by point, not forgetting that there is such a phenomenon. which people call Nezhdanova chick. Well, when the unexpected shows up on your doorstep, no amount of planning will help. Thomas boldly defended his main principle of life. There must be order in everything. The theory of opponents, he destroyed one phrase: a serious man will not be taken by surprise, and do not wait. Because he is prepared for such moments. Things didn't go smoothly for me either. There were many times that the corks blew out, and I learned by ear and tried not to make similar mistakes in the future. They teach their son that kind of schedule from a young age. Thomas had a hard life. His mother was widowed early and single-handedly raised 3 boys. Thomas was the oldest in the family. That's why he had more responsibility. From the age of 14, the boy began to earn money. During summer vacations, he did not live on the beach, but unloaded wagons at the station. Thomas tried his hand at a fast food restaurant, where he was taken as an assistant cook. After school, a neighbor out of pity attached him to an auto shop from where he went to serve in the army. After the service, he had a dream to study to become a paramedic. But he had to help his mother raise his younger brothers, and to be closer to his cherished dream, Thomas got a job as a driver at an ambulance station. There he met his fate in the form of Molly, a young graduate of the regional medical school. Between the young paramedic and the driver immediately established a special relationship. At first it was sympathy, which turned into a strong friendship. Often after the shift, the young people spent time together. They often helped each other in life's problems. But their relationship never went beyond what could be between buddies. Once Molly did not come on shift, and Thomas got worried. He began to find out the reason for the girlfriend's absence, since no one knew anything. He had to go to the superintendent. She looked at the guy over her glasses and said with a sneer that it is you, Thomas, do not take care of your partner. It seemed to the boy at that moment that the floor under his feet coughed. What about Molly? Something terrible happened to her. The supervisor realized that a little too much with the mystery and hurried to reassure the valued employee Thomas. She's not worried about it, and she's gone white. She broke her whole leg. She was doing some repairs at home and fell from a height. In short, a domestic injury. The young man exhaled with relief. God, she is such a risk taker, always climbing on the road. How many times had I told her to be careful, but she only had sacks. The supervisor said, you don't talk, you have to act. A real man is the one who came, saw, and took to the registry office. We have already started to watch you. We're already looking forward to the wedding. Thomas's face flushed, and he hurried out of the superintendent's office. That day, he could not wait until the end of his shift, and after work, he hurried home to his girlfriend, not forgetting to pick up a bunch of flowers on the way. The girl was happy to see him. Thomas, I had a feeling you'd come. It's so boring to be alone at home and on crutches. The girl grinned and asked to be supported, and only then noticed the bouquet in Thomas's hands. Oh, Thomas, you with the flowers. I wonder how to take that as a sign of respect. Or did Thomas never do anything rash? And then some excitement kicked in and he blurted out, Molly, maybe we should stop walking around. Yeah, around. The whole substation is watching us, and you and I are acting like teenagers. Maybe it's time for us to make up our minds. The girl very calmly, as if she had been expecting this conversation for a long time, answered Thomas. Of course, the moment you chose was not quite right, but I am glad that you found the strength to say these words to me. I thought I'd never hear them, that you'd be circling me for another 5 years. The guy was shocked. Why didn't you say anything? Unfortunately, it's a man's prerogative to make the first confession. So we poor and unfortunate have to wait for you to mature. After the natives were married, they became known as the family crew. To load the small team was allocated a nurse, Nancy, who was a graduate of the same school where Molly studied. The crew worked for almost 15 years, and then Nancy moved to the infectious disease department. In rare moments of rest, friends liked to talk about life as well. Thomas was always the instigator of such conversations. Nancy, you have a daughter growing up and we have a son. I guess it was me who thought more than once about my Lenoshka's future. Nancy always answered evasively. Only once she confessed. I think it's a pointless venture. Of course, like any mother, I want my child to do well, but let her choose her own business. Since this admission was contrary to Thomas's own principles, he began to reassure Hope. You can't do that. A man at such a young age is not yet capable of calculating everything. I know from my own experience that at 17, the world is a rosy place, so it's the parents' job to help their child avoid mistakes. Silent. Before Molly was interrupted by her husband, Thomas, why are you sticking your nose in other people's monasteries? Nancy, imagine. He's got it in his head that our William has to be a doctor. This desire had already taken on the proportions of a fixed idea. The man wouldn't give up. But I don't impose my understanding on my son. I'm just trying to set him on the right wavelength, and I don't see anything wrong with that approach. I wanted to dedicate my life to medicine. I wanted to save people. I think I've achieved that goal. You save lives with us every day? No, Molly, it's not exactly what I dreamed of. I'm just a driver, not a doctor. You're not quite up to par either. So I'm instilling in our son that he must improve on you and me. Nancy listened and wondered, Thomas, because you are definitely right about something. I wonder how your son perceives this kind of mentoring. Molly answered for her husband. William's fascinated by medicine. He has already had time to thoroughly study human anatomy in the library, borrowed books. In short, he is preparing for admission. William really already from the 9th grade began to systematically move towards the main life goal. He attended optional classes in biology, took part in thematic Olympiads. In his certificate were only 2 B's, so he entered the medical school from the first go well, internalized the rules of his father's school, and did not allow him to relax. His fellow students laughed at him. William never tasted old age, the taste of life. For once throw everything away and go for a walk. Only once William broke away from his principles and decided to have a good time. It happened around Christmas. For almost a week, the guys went out at the parents' villa of one of the students. Of course, there were strong drinks, there were girls. But after the holidays, William was out for over a week. He even then, years later with shame, remembered that party and its consequences. The result of the fun was tales and problems in the dean's office. But the most amazing thing was that his father found out about his exploits and personally came to the university. Thomas was not shy in expressions and publicly educated his son. Did you do that? You want to drop out of university? Your mother and I worked so hard for you to study. You became a human being, and you've gone on a bender. It'll happen again. I don't think you're an adult. I'll slap you on the back with a belt. Thomas began to stretch the belt on his pants to make sure. William was frightened. What are you doing? Don't make a laughingstock out of me. Men yanked his hand away. You yourself have willingly become an object of ridicule. The fame of your adventures has reached our town. I've told you everything. Now think. The father was very unhappy with his son and immediately went to the train station. William wanted to see him off, but Thomas grumbled grudgingly. I don't need to see them off, and I'm still able to get around on my own. The man headed for the exit, but returned abruptly. He looked into his son's eyes as if he wanted to see into his soul. William, you have no idea how upset your mother is. There's already rumors going around town about you. I won't tell you about it. And people she knows are poking her in the eye, and she's feeling sorry for her. In fact, before you do anything, think about your loved ones. Unfortunately, we rarely think about the fact that our actions can hurt our loved ones. His father left, and his last words echoed in William's mind for a long time. At night he dreamed of his father, and through the dream, Dr. William thought of calling his parents in the morning. It was the last conscious thought after which he fell into a restless sleep, involving the chief physician, Dr. Michael, and a strange girl he met near the park. Holidays in the lives of members of any profession only make pleasant changes for a short time. Most often they pass without consequences. Interestingly, it is medics who least of all attach importance to such dates. In a week, the medical workers' day itself and the fiery speech of the chief physician were forgotten. However, the pleasant moments still remained, despite the threats of the head of the personnel department. All employees received bonuses, including those who demonstrated their indiscipline. Only they gave out the gratuity after the holiday before lunch. Wendy, a general surgery charge nurse, burst into the resident's office. "Hurry up and run to accounting. They're giving everyone a bonus there." William wondered, what bonus? The charge nurse lamented as some promised money in the account had not yet arrived. "It just came in today. Why not on the card?" "Dr. William, do you have a problem with that? If they give you cash, it's because they have to." What kind of people are these? You do good things for them, and they turn their noses up at it. For Wendy, there was no such thing as rank or position. She could get into an argument with the head of the department and with the most important doctor. William looked at Olga Akimovna, who, without raising her head, sang over the case histories of her patients at a neighboring table. "Are you like Wendy?" The woman, without taking a break from her work, said, "Not as you see, William, and I have to finish writing. I'm in a rut. I'm looking for duty hours in these papers. I'll get my bonus later today. Anyway, a spoonful is a spoonful. And after the fact, it's no longer interesting." I don't agree with you because it's always nice to get money. For many people, the day of receipt turns into a real holiday. Wendy looked at the young doctor with surprise. "William, I will never believe that you belong to this category of people. You're so responsible." And William realized that Wendy, who was temporarily in charge of the department, had misunderstood his statement. He laughed heartily. "Did you think I was on my own time?" "Oh no. I'm not into that kind of thing, and I don't have any bad habits. You could say I'm the perfect candidate for a husband. And you, my colleague, you're very modest. It's true, I'm not exactly your fiancé." 20 years ago, a dreamy smile froze on the face of this charming woman, and William involuntarily admired her. But Wendy quickly brought him back down to earth. William, run for the bonus only briefly. A familiar figure loomed lonely by the elevator, and William picked up his pace. "Michael, wait for me." Michael turned around. "Oh, William, good to see you." "It's very good to see you." Amazing things are happening in this world. You and I have crossed paths again at this point. William's playing along with his coworker. "You can't change who you are. You're going to accounting too." Yes, at least one pleasant moment today. The elevator stopped almost silently, and the men entered the cabin. William noticed that Michael was in a bad mood. He asked politely, "Is something wrong? You don't look familiar today." Michael sighed heavily. "There are all kinds of accidents. Some are more like a disaster. This is the kind of disaster that hit our department." Michael grimaced as if he was suffering from a toothache. "Just please don't ask me anything now. We'll discuss it afterward. If you're interested, of course. You and I work together. And of course, I care about my colleagues' concerns." Michael smiled languidly. "Thank you." The elevator stopped on the first floor, where the hospital staff were waiting eagerly to receive their bonuses. They immediately poured into the booth, so the surgeons had to go to the exit. "Let me out, people." Michael swore half-heartedly. "They're coming in like hell. There are rules after all." William remarked cheerfully. "Michael, don't make such a big deal out of it. You're just in a bad mood today, so you're annoyed by other people's fun. As a doctor, the situation is critical and requires urgent action. In short, you need to ease your soul, and I'm ready to listen to you." Michael patted William on the shoulder. "You know what, Dr. William? It's not a very positive environment right now. And there's no time to talk. Let's meet after work." William's excited. "I'd love to. I loved that restaurant. Where you took me last Friday." "Ah, okay. So that's where we're having dinner tonight." William never rushed things, but after the meeting he kept glancing at his watch. It didn't escape the eye of the watcher at Wendy's. "William, are you in a hurry for a date? You're almost there. Did you find your life partner so quickly?" "Wendy, if it had happened, you can't imagine how happy I would have been. But instead of a beautiful stranger on the way to the accounting office, I met a comrade, and we decided to have dinner together in a wonderful restaurant. By the way, I recommend it. The place has a romantic name of blues, and there is excellent food." The supervisor looked suspiciously at the surgeon. "You just keep it in moderation, because I know these friendly meetings. My husband drinks brine or kefir after such events. I tell him it's time to settle down. And he tells me, 'Wendy, you don't understand male companionship.' Wendy, your husband's right, because it's the kind of company that brings people together. And anyway, the superintendent waved her hand in resignation. Oh, that male solidarity. Don't forget you're on duty tomorrow. And as a friendly piece of advice, I also want to tell you not to trust people you don't know very well. William could hardly contain his laughter. Wendy, are you so much like my mother now? She tried to protect me from dangerous acquaintances when I was young. The woman was not even embarrassed, thinking that at the moment I was protecting not only the department management, but also your mother. So I want to warn you that Michael is not who he pretends to be. That's what they call a dark horse. William had an involuntary outburst. But Wendy, don't interrupt me, young man. I know what you're thinking, but I'm not a squabbler. And I don't believe in gossip. I have personal experience with this man. And I'll be honest with you, it's not very pleasant. I mean experience. I won't go into details, but Michael is the kind of man who puts his personal interests first. He'll set you up at any moment. And he's not very professional either. But then why do they keep him in his position? Wendy grinned. Michael in good health has a hairy arm. You're a new guy. And you don't know that the urology departments were opened only for the sake of introducing one managerial position. Which, by the way, is why we have a constant shortage of beds. But it's all gonna come out eventually. Ethan will leave, and this whole thing will be over. William respected Olga Akimova and did not doubt the rightness of her words. After this conversation, he seriously thought about it. But he did not want to cancel the meeting with Michael. I'll try to figure out for myself what kind of person he is. I've never been wrong about people. Did I have a misfire this time? The answer to that question took time, and William decided not to force the issue. At 5 o'clock sharp, he left the office, as there was no familiar figure in the area of the main entrance. William decided to wait. It was raining lightly in a small square near the hospital, so he had to use an umbrella. To his surprise, the man found that he was not alone here. There was a girl sitting on a park bench and a basket of flowers next to her. William approached the young flower pupil and immediately recognized in her the same girl he had seen in the city park a week ago. "Hello, little girl." The girl looked at him warily. "Hello. Why are you sitting out in such bad weather?" "I'm alone here. I'm just sitting here, that's all." It was easy to guess from the girl's tone that she was uncomfortable with the stranger's questions. She hid her frightened eyes from him and then turned away, pretending not to care about him. William sat down on the wet bench. "Tell me, if it's no secret, who were the flowers for?" The girl was shooting him a glare. Not for whom, but just for fun. People go to the hospital to check on someone. And some people need flowers. So do you give flowers or sell them? The girl got really angry. "I'm just a little girl. You can't sell to little ones." William said in the friendliest possible way. "Okay, you and I are going to break the rules a little. Give me the flowers and I'll give you some ice cream. Can you consider it a treat?" The man picked 5 lush daisies out of the pile and gave the girl a few coins. She immediately smiled. "Thank you, uncle. If you like daisies, I can bring them to you here." Although William was completely indifferent to flowers, he said, "Okay, bring them. Just tell me, where is your mom?" "I don't have a mom. I live with Jenna. That's my aunt, but she's like mom and your aunt lets you sell flowers." 2 blue eyes barely slid over William's face. "What are you?" "Jenna doesn't. She sells on her own when she's home. But right now, Auntie's at work. She's working 2 jobs because we need a lot of money. And you want to help her?" The girl lowered her head, but didn't answer anything. Michael appeared on the path. "William, there you are. I've been dropping you off. First, I was stuck at the elevator. Then the girls told me that you had already left. And what are you doing here alone? And in the rain, probably thinking of home." Did William think to himself? Did Michael's mood improve? Cool, it's up. But he said out loud, "No, you didn't. I just had a conversation with a very nice creature." William looked around confused. "She was just here, but she's gone." Michael said meaningfully, "Oh, you met your stranger in this cozy mini park." "No, it was just a little girl, about 10 years old, maybe a little more. She had a basket of flowers with her. But as soon as you appeared, she disappeared, as if vanished into thin air." Michael waved his index finger. "Don't think anything bad about me. I'm not a villain, and I had nothing to do with the disappearance of the little girl." Michael had a very positive attitude. That's why William asked, "Are you joking?" "That's a good sign. Your situation has been resolved." Michael put his arm around his shoulders. "Not quite, but there's Nancy. By the way, there's something you can help me with." William said nothing, but remembered the superintendent's warning. The men walked in silence to the restaurant and took the same table they had sat at the week before. William remarked meaningfully, "It seems to me, Michael, that you and I are starting a nice tradition. If my wife finds out that I'm wasting money, she'll destroy me with a word." The man laughed, but it was a strained laugh. William pretended not to notice. There were no customers in the restaurant at that hour, so the waiter quickly brought the order and wished the guests a pleasant appetite. The men refused to have a drink beforehand, but Michael asked them to be on the safe side. William crossed his arms over his chest, but I didn't. "I've got a 24-hour shift tomorrow morning at 800 hours. And you yourself know very well that there's always a large influx of useful, broken, and sharp bellies on the weekends. That's for sure. To be honest, I don't like this kind of duty. You're always waiting for some kind of trick that could ruin all your prospects." William raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Even so, I've never thought on such a grand scale. My parents, both of whom have been in medicine for almost 40 years, they always told me that the most important thing is to save a person's life. It doesn't matter if it's a civil servant or a bum living in a dump. You're an altruist, William. That's commendable. But I'm of a different nature, and therefore I always keep in my head thoughts about the future. That is, I view any event or fact from several perspectives. If I understand you correctly, the personal matters to you, not more, but it does. And I don't see anything wrong with that." Like last time, William has lost his appetite. "Michael, you promised to tell me about the difficulties of your department." A grimace of displeasure froze on Michael's face for a moment, but he immediately put on a smile. "Yes, of course. After all, that's the reason why you and I decided to meet again. By the way, we've switched to an official tone again." William missed the remark. Mimicking his buddy, he changed the subject. "You've been head of the department for a long time." Did Michael's face turn into a living mask again? "No, not that long. At first I was just a resident, but that was at the old hospital. And when the new one opened up, the higher-ups decided to allocate beds to urology. So they put me in that position. And now someone's decided to rethink the whole thing." Michael's all twisted up with anger. "I told you it's a real shithole in here. Everyone's trying to eat whoever's more successful. I'm being set up all the time. Word came down today that they're planning to close the branch. The reason? You can't just shut down an entire department. If they wanted to, there's always an excuse. Ethan said our statistics are lousy. We're not meeting our daily targets. It's a bunch of crap. It's not a treatment center." William waited for Michael to blow off all the steam. 2 minutes. Michael puffed indignantly, and then both of them looked at William in a belittling way. "This is what's going to happen. We're going to be merged with general surgery. I mean, your department. It is clear that in such an arrangement the question of leadership will be acute." William became wary, and Michael said with undisguised irritation, "William, why are you playing games? You all understand perfectly well. You will have to choose, and a lot depends on you." William had never met such blatant insolence in his life. He even became numb with confusion for a moment. "So you want me to support your candidacy?" "Of course I do. We're friends. And what is this Wendy? She may be a good surgeon, but her age and outdated approach are all out of step with the times. I don't think someone like that should be in a leadership position. Don't you have any shortcomings?" This question William asked not without sarcasm. But Michael didn't notice it. He was in a state of enthusiasm. "In a professional sense, of course I have no shortcomings. I am an experienced doctor. I have performed serious operations on my own, and I have been recognized in the region many times. Besides, it is too early for me to think about a well-deserved vacation." Michael wanted to add something else, but looked at William and stopped talking. William realized that his interlocutor was waiting for his answer. He decided not to mislead Michael and spoke frankly enough. "Michael, I can't promise you anything right now because I hate behind-the-scenes games. That's the first thing. And second, I disagree with you about age. I have always believed that an executive position should be held by an experienced specialist with a solid work record, not the least of which is the credibility of the candidate for the position. And Wendy is very well respected on the ward." "William, don't jump to conclusions." The waiter's arrival silenced Michael. He fussed and grabbed the bill. "I'll pay. It was my idea." William said firmly, "I'm used to paying for my own dinner." He counted out the amount and handed it to the waiter. As he walked towards the exit, he could feel Michael's unkind gaze on his back. With regret, William thought how deceptive it was. Sometimes a person's appearance can be deceiving. He looks so nice and just a shirt guy, but he's hatching such schemes. Dr. William spent the evening in front of the TV again. And on Saturday morning, just before he went on duty, we decided to call his father. "Does Grandpa need your advice?" Father's confident voice immediately worked as a sedative thoughts lined up and a friendly row daughter appeared confident. The conversation was not long, because Thomas did not like to waste his tongue. But after this communication session, William felt a little calmer. Dr. William liked to walk, although most of his colleagues came to work by private transport. He did not change his habit. It was about a 20-minute walk to the hospital at a relaxed pace, so he got out early so that he had time to spare. The air felt fresh after yesterday's rain. The sun was doing its job properly. The man didn't expect to meet the flower girl again this Saturday morning, but the little flower girl was sitting on the same bench, and he saw two women in hospital gowns move away from her. The doctor cheerfully greeted the girl. "Hello. I didn't expect to see you here." The girl was surprised. "But I promised you yesterday that I would come, and a promise must be kept. Good girl. What's your name?" "Because we've known each other for 2 days." "I don't know your name." "I'm Kate." "I know you. You're Dr. William." William wondered, "And who told you my big secret?" Kate nodded toward the women. "Those ladies over there said William is coming, so he's making his rounds. And you go to your sick people every day?" The girl asked sympathetically. "It must be hard. Even worse than going to school." "You guessed it. But that's the way life is. Everyone has to fulfill their duties. I'm a doctor, and I'm supposed to treat people. Do you make everybody bigger?" "I try. But it is not always possible, to my great regret." The girl looked at him with a look of pain. "My mom wasn't saved either. I don't know how it happened. Aunt Jenna won't tell me anything. And she's right. There are some things that little children are better off not knowing." The girl said dreamily, "I can't wait to grow up." "Take your time, little girl." "All right, it's not time to go." He was about to turn around, but the girl stopped him. "And the flowers? I picked bigger ones for you. Jenna says my mom was a big fan of daisies too. I'd even have a picture of my mom in a field with a daisy. It's so beautiful." Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced the man's heart. He hurriedly took a bunch of wildflowers and gave the girl a few hundred of their bills. "Thank you for the flowers and buy yourself some sweets. Will you come tomorrow?" He tossed on the go. "No, I won't have time tomorrow." William accepted the duty, but a vague feeling of uneasiness did not leave him all day. Contrary to expectations, however, the patients coming in were few and mostly not his specialty. So he was able to think things over in silence and resident. In all his time at the hospital, William had never been in such a confusing situation. In some strange way, the underhanded games of Michael and the appearance of this girl merged into one, and this combination was alarming because he did not know its meaning. He thought, why did this strange girl appear now? After all, it's a small town, and I should have met her earlier. Toward the end of the day, the man suddenly came to the conclusion that there was something so elusive about this girl that reminded him of his dead fiancée. For many years, he strenuously chased away the memories of that tragedy, and until today he has succeeded. After graduating from the Institute, William did not have to look for a first job. Even in his last year during his internship, he proved himself in the diagnostic center. Old specialists admired him. "This guy is a real catch for us in technology. He is smart and catches useful material on the fly. William gave similar feedback, and he was even more eager. As a result, he got an excellent grade for his internship, and the institute sent a request to the dean's office and was surprised. William, you are definitely making progress in my day. There's only been a couple of times where we've been sent an individual request. How would you like to work at the center? William, as a student should, is modestly dumbfounded. In principle, I don't mind, although I prefer live practice. The dean grinned. Why do they deal with corpses and diagnostics? There are quite alive people there too. They come to be examined. I want to operate, although to work on modern devices is also tempting, but you do not understand and so want. And so I want to. Let's make up our minds. People are waiting for an answer as usual. William asked his father for advice. Thomas said sternly, son, it's time you learn to make responsible decisions for yourself. What's your gut telling you to say yes? The diagnostic center is the best place to start a practice. And I don't want to let people down. It's a great staff. Well, you see, you've answered an important question. William worked at the center for a little over 3 years. He could operate complex machines with his eyes closed and decipher scans without error. There was talk in the department that William had a bright career ahead of him. It was a period of upward mobility, and it was during this time that he began an affair with Cindy. The girl with such a rare name worked in a cafe, which was located on the first floor of the center. She stood on the distribution and, like a fairground caller, offered visitors different dishes. Later he noticed that the girl was clearly making eyes at him. He too began to flirt with her. A few months passed in this mode, and one day the girl asked Doctor, "Are you always like this?" William pretended he didn't understand the question. "But it's like you're out of this world. The girl's trying, she's paying attention to you, and you're not reacting. It's not even interesting." William laughed. "It's not hard to guess that the girl who suffers from my inattention is you." "Well, yes, but I don't, because I'm fun by nature. My girlfriends say I can lift a dead man," though the joke wasn't exactly a good one, considering the venue in which it was made. William smiled. "I wouldn't mind testing your skills. What time do you work till?" 6 o'clock. "That's good. I'll be waiting for you right here at the entrance." At first, William didn't think of getting serious with this poor girl. Cindy was clearly not in his interest. Her way of speaking sometimes put him in a stupor. Of course, he was not against female society, but always limited himself to light relationships, because his plans for the near future did not include marriage. But apparently, fate decided to play a joke with him, and he did not notice how Cindy charmed him. William was drawn to this pretty country girl as if she were a magnet. As much as possible with his modest salary, he gave the girl gifts, and she wasn't shy about telling him what she wanted. A bouquet for Candy, and the period lasted only 2 weeks. And then happened what all lovers wait with excitement. One day, after an evening walk, Cindy said to William, breathlessly, "I am alone tonight. All alone, my neighbor on the shift will return only at 9 p.m. The young man immediately took the hint, and like a real man, he could not refuse the lady. "Then let's go to your place." It was not a normal night. Although William had close relationships with girls and women before, but he had never experienced such amazing sensations. When it was time to break up, he couldn't tear himself away from his beloved, and William whispered something. "I've never met a girl like her before." "William, I've always dreamed of a guy like that too." After that night, he couldn't recover for a long time. There's a thought pulsing somewhere near his temple. "William, you're in love, aren't you?" He hadn't wondered how or why Cindy was in town. He knew nothing about the girl at all. A little later, she had confessed to him that right after graduation, she had had an affair with a guy from their town. But he dumped her. Cindy told this touching story with tears in her eyes. "You know, William, I trusted him, and he just took advantage of my weakness. It was because of him that I remained an underachiever." William was very surprised. "Were you so worried that you couldn't pull yourself together to go to college?" Cindy, looking straight into his eyes, replied, "I walked around like a fog for 3 years. Everything I did was automatic. My mother even took me to a therapist in the region." "Isn't there such a specialist in your hospital?" That you William in our town is such a hospital that it's scary to go there. I mean, it's kind of hopeless. That's why you went to the big city looking for a happy life. This question suddenly caused the girl to become aggressive. Why? Everyone thinks that since the girl is from the province, it means that she came to catch a rich daddy. I have other plans, and old men are not my type. And I don't care about money. Then tell me what you value most in a man. The girl said honesty without a hitch. I guessed you right away. As soon as I saw the first time in our canteen, I realized that you will not change for small things. Well, you weren't wrong. My father taught me from childhood that any woman, regardless of age and status, deserves respect. In short, I was brought up in a conservative spirit. Cindy looked at him enthusiastically. William liked this girl's gaze and her admiring sighs. He drew her to him. Cindy had never suggested this to anyone before. First, we'll go to my parents' house for the weekend. I want you to meet them. The girl abruptly released herself from the embrace. It seems to me that you are rushing things. I'm nobody to you. How will you introduce me? William realized that Cindy was waiting for a more serious step from him, which he could not yet decide on. It was only at the end of August that he still had to propose to the girl, when she embarrassingly confessed to him, William. I'm not exactly sure yet, but we might have one soon. She looked at him expectantly, and he didn't answer right away. Then you and I need to sign right away. Cindy's lips curled into a sneer. Wait, like sign? A wedding. Every girl dreams of this day. Her lover's eyes glistened suspiciously, and William began to reassure her. You can't be upset. Okay, I'm taking out a loan, and my parents will help. And we'll have a real wedding. Cindy jumped for joy all evening. She thought of different variants of the wedding celebration, and before going to bed, she suddenly asked, Will we have a wedding trip? William wasn't prepared for such a question and decided not to be blunt. I don't have a high enough income to have a wedding and go on vacation. So choose one or the other. In my opinion, the best option is to just get married and then go south. My folks have a favorite vacation spot in Miami. Have you ever been there? Cindy was confused. Her eyes darted around. No, not once. I like Bali better. William thought to himself, I think my little one has an unhealthy appetite. But he didn't voice this thought, but promised the girl, Okay, we'll figure something out. First we'll apply, and then we'll find a trip. I have a vacation in September. Cindy clapped his hands together in joy. Can you imagine what a happy coincidence it is for me too? For several days in the mind of the young doctor after the series is this very phrase, what a happy coincidence. Luck accompanied the young couple through an acquaintance William bought at a discount 2 hot vouchers to Miami. For the first few days, Cindy curved his lips, expressing his displeasure. I thought we would go to Bali as a last resort, and Miami doesn't impress me personally. And I know a woman who works as a chef. She said the food there is so bad. William was getting fed up with his wife-to-be's perpetual dissatisfaction, so he decided to take the piss out of the girl. Cindy, you should listen to your acquaintances less. Everyone has their own idea of the level of service. Maybe your cook was offended by someone in Miami. That's why she's angry. And there was also the fact that the trip did not coincide with the scheduled date of marriage. It turned out that the young should first go on vacation and then formalize their relationship. But this circumstance did not embarrass Cindy in the least. It seems to me a trifle. On the contrary, it's very intriguing. We'll come with you, and the next day we'll go to the registry office. The girl quickly came to terms with the narrow format of the celebration. Moreover, as it later turned out, she had a very limited circle of relatives and acquaintances. However, there was one thing that bothered William. The bride did not want to introduce him to her family before the marriage. It seemed that she was just shy of her mother and sister. A couple of times he communicated with her mother by cell phone, but this way could hardly be called acquaintance. The vacation was coming to an end when Cindy decided to go for a drive with the neighbors. William did not like this kind of entertainment, and he immediately refused. You go, and I'll leave for a while because you're making me sleepy today. It seemed to him that Cindy was pleased. That's right, get some rest. And I've had a bit of a break. Family life's about to start. You'll be in control of your every move. Go have fun. Just watch. No heroics, not forgetting your delicate position. The girl made her lips a tube. William, I'm waiting for the smacky, smacky, smacky. He kissed his fiancée firmly and flopped into bed. He did not note the time, so it was hard to tell how long after the company of young people, including Cindy, had left. William was awakened by screaming. There was screaming in the street and in the hotel. But it was not clear what had so excited the people. William jumped out on the veranda and cheerfully asked people what was the reason for the uproar. Standing on the terrace below, a teenager briefly explained a banana had overturned. Everyone swam out. Only one girl couldn't swim at all. She's in the water, and the lifeguards are pumping her out. William did not finish listening to the guy, snapped out of his seat at his confused mind, thought stumbling, mixed with horrifying images. A crowd of people had gathered on the beach, but he rushed through this barrier. Cindy, where's my fiancé? He must have looked like a madman, because as he approached, people immediately stepped in. Cindy was lying on the sand, and the rescuers were trying to revive her. William roughly pushed one of them away. I'm a doctor. Let me in. The lifeguard looked at him sadly. Bro, it's too late. We fought for about 15 minutes, but it was no use. What happened next? William remembered vaguely. He clung to the girl's body and began to shake it. Cindy, wake up. It shouldn't have happened, but a slight smile was forever frozen on the girl's dead face. The mother came to pick up her dead daughter's body, but she didn't want to even talk to her failed son-in-law because she thought he was responsible for the girl's death. Before leaving, the woman decided to say everything she thought. Do not dare to appear in our city. If you come back, you'll be in trouble, won't you? I don't care if they put me in jail. Only 3 months later, William received a copy of his fiancée's death certificate through an acquaintance. But the medical document did not mention Cindy's pregnancy. He became uncomfortable with the realization that he had been deceived by his fiancée before her tragic death. And it was this fact that caused the young man incredible pain and torment. He could no longer work at the diagnostic center, and immediately after his vacation he transferred to the regional hospital. The tragedy in his personal life affected the fate of the young surgeon. The first 2 years he avoided any relationship with girls, but gradually the pain dulled, and William returned to normal life. This process was greatly facilitated by Thomas, my son. Life goes on, and you shouldn't wall yourself off. Mom and I respect your feelings. But there are a lot of beautiful girls out there besides Cindy. Do you want a family? Life alone is hard and joyless. William really wanted to make a change in his life, but he couldn't get over himself when he found out by chance that a new hospital complex had opened in his hometown. It immediately clicked in his head that this is your chance. He hurried to the regional health department to declare his desire to move to the provincial town. Dr. Williams' initiative was appreciated. Thank you for responding. We don't even know how to solve the problem of staff starvation. It's a big hospital, and we're woefully understaffed, so your application will probably be approved. The next day, he got a call. William, your application has been approved. When can you leave? As soon as tomorrow. As soon as I get the calculations, I'm going straight to this town. And then he was burned. The thought that this was the town where his Cindy lived. Until then, the name of the town had seemed familiar, and that was all. Everything was unfamiliar in the new place. Particularly striking were the manners of the local population. Here everyone knew everything about every person and could even list relatives up to the fifth knee. In the hospital itself, too, reigned not quite familiar orders. For example, it was the norm for doctors and junior medical personnel to have a panebristic attitude to each other. A nurse could publicly reprimand a doctor. When William spoke out about this at tea time, Wendy warned him, William, don't even try to change anything. You won't be understood here. It's better to pretend you don't notice anything. William thought about it and decided that he should heed the advice of the headmistress. So he slowly adapted to life in the new conditions. And after 2 years, he realized that local manners no longer caused such annoyance and irritation as in the first days. The chief physician was also looking at the surgeon all this time. All the visiting specialists enjoyed the authority and respect of the locals, which included Michael. There was a completely different attitude. when there was a command from above to optimize the hospital. Ethan and his 2 deputies brainstormed for weeks. The head doctor suggested that we should do it with less waste. You realize that we can't lose valuable personnel. Therefore, the most reasonable solution would be to merge the 2 departments. As for my personal opinion, I would remove urology. Bed occupancy in this department is deplorable. We have to make it up at the expense of other patients. And as a result, the overall performance of the entire hospital suffers. After long meetings, all unanimously agreed on this option. It remained only to appoint the necessary head of the department. One of the deputies supported the candidacy, and the second thought that this post should take Michael. Friends, I think Michael is more suitable for this position. He's young, enterprising. It is necessary to create favorable conditions for such people. The first deputy objected that initiative alone wouldn't get you far. Wendy has experience, which is the most important thing in our business. Or Fluff listened to the disputants in silence when they began to defend their point of view. He said firmly, "And it seems to me that William is quite right for the position of superintendent. He has a good practice, having worked in the diagnostic center, then in the regional surgery. William is a modern physician, and that's the kind of people we need today. I think that in the long term, William may well take my chair." It was an unexpected decision because we looked at each other. But Wendy, what about her? She'll take the foreign secretary's chair. I can safely rely on such an assistant. Such a decision of the chief physician meant that one of the deputies would go to the department or to the polyclinic. But exactly who would become an outsider, no one knew yet. Thus, solving the personnel issue at the district hospital served to make several enemies of Dr. William. But William didn't even realize it. On Monday morning, he showed up for work and was told by the charge nurse to go to the waiting room, and the chief paged you. Ethan was on the phone with someone. He waved at him, signaling for the doctor to take a seat on the desk. Nearby, the chief hung up the phone and said without speaking, which was uncharacteristic of him, "You must have heard that our hospital is in turmoil." "Yes, I've heard a little something. I don't have time to get into rumors." Ethan bought it. "You should have. You have to stay on top of things." William smiled. "Okay, Ethan, I'll make it up to you. But I don't think that's why you called me here." "You got it, William. On orders from above, you are to optimize." I tripped over a difficult word and swore. God damn it, they make up words to break your tongue, so I don't have to burden you and take up your time. "I would like to inform you that you will probably take the position of the head after urology joins your department." William jumped up. "Ethan, I don't want to work in the operating room." "I don't think there's anything in the way of that. But Wendy, after all, she's been acting chief for so many years. We'll move up to a higher management position, so you don't have to worry about her fate." William wanted to make another argument, but Ethan frowned. "That's it, William. The matter of your appointment is almost closed. All that's left is to wait for his approval of your candidacy. But I have no doubt that the answer will be favorable." William left the office of the chief and joined the wall. The secretary in a happy voice said, "William, congratulations on your appointment." He looked at the girl confusedly. "It's too early to beat the drums. Maybe the region will not approve me and excluded. Eastern will approve. I imagine Michael will be tearing the hair out of his head." And William smiled. "Jenna, you are cruel, considering the peculiarity of Michael's hairstyle." The girl giggled. "Oh, hilarious. I've already imagined this picture." William also imagined how Michael would look for vegetation on his completely bald head. And his mood immediately improved. Back at the ward, he immediately spoke to Wendy. "I'll be honest with you, I don't see myself as a supervisor." She objected. "William, you now look like a volcano also puffing with indignation. But do not waste your nerves, because your appointment was expected. In fact, I recommended you. Michael is the wrong bird, and he has too much ambition." There was no time to argue because he had patients waiting for him. By the end of the day, William was so wrapped up in his work that he forgot his assignment. His stomach was cramping from hunger cramps, so he decided to stop somewhere to eat. The last thing William wanted to see. Michael. But that's exactly who was waiting for him on the hospital porch. What's William? Celebrating a triumph. He didn't realize at first what Michael was talking about. If you mean the surgery, then yes, indeed, it did turn out surprisingly well. I'm always wary of abdominal manipulation because you don't know what you're going to see. At the autopsy, Michael unceremoniously interrupted his colleague. He's not talking to me. I'm talking about the other surgery. Honestly, I didn't expect this from you. I thought you were a model of integrity. And you? I trusted you, and you promised your cooperation. Michael sounded desperate. William realized it was about his appointment. Oh my God, Michael. I didn't even know I was here. I've been called on the carpet and informed. And it's our business to obey orders? Oh, don't despair. Maybe they won't approve my candidacy upstairs. William took a step toward Gorbachev, but he stepped back. Don't try to make excuses, William. I regard your action as a stab in the back. Suddenly, Michael turned abruptly and almost ran towards the parking lot. William looked sadly at him. That was a bad idea. But did I know? William walked home along the familiar route and imagined the deafening silence that would greet him in his apartment. He wanted to howl with longing, because what had begun as a friendship with Michael had shattered in an instant. He spent the whole evening in front of the TV again, thinking, why am I so unlucky? It was as if someone had spoken bad luck and misfortune, was just beginning to glue things together. As His Majesty chants explodes and everything collapses in front of his eyes. Do I really have the whole century to lead alone? A disturbing dream falls. Dr. Germans remembered that he had not met the girl Kate for several days. He thought regretfully that he had not even tried to find out anything about the child. Summer was slowly moving toward its sunset. The first fallen leaves appeared on the sidewalks, and the rain increasingly reminded him of the imminent arrival of autumn. William had had his own memories associated with this time of year since he had moved away. Every year, on the last day of August, he visited his bride's grave. When he first went to the cemetery, there was a fear that Cindy's mother would fulfill her promise. But the watchman who helped him find the place where the girl was buried got to talking. We still remember the incident. People say Cindy had a fiancé in town, and she died right in front of him. And he didn't help her. Or maybe the guy just didn't have time to prevent the trouble. I mean, how many times has this news shocked William? But he didn't say anything. He continued his sad tale. The mother. It's a shame. She raised her daughter alone. Her husband died a month after the wedding. He dozed off in the grass. And then she just popped out of nowhere. So she remained a widow all her life. Men were drawn to her. She was a beautiful young spirit, but she refused them all. And then her younger sister, her mom gave her a girl of her own, and she washed off in an unknown direction. William followed the watchman and listening to this story, which shook him. Cindy did not tell him anything. Probably she was embarrassed about her past. Everyone came. Here they are together. Mother and daughter. The man pointed with his hand at two modest monuments to the winter, read the dates, and felt sick to his stomach. Barely audible, he asked why Cindy's mother died. Because she had a heart condition. She had to have an operation, and where to get the money? Cindy went to the city to earn money and left her girl with her mother. Urka didn't hurt either. She earns a lot at the post office, but she's good. You did the monuments. We walked modestly yet humanly. The watchman was speaking in a hurry, and William could not immediately grasp the essence of his story when he mentioned a girl. He wanted to ask more, but the man was in a hurry. Well, I don't have time to dance and grind with you. I need to keep an eye on the subject. Otherwise, all sorts of people walk around, and then the property disappears. The guard quickly followed the family down the path between the rows of graves. That first time William sat at the graves until evening. He mentally talked to Cindy and heard her answering him cheerfully. After that visit to the mournful place, he felt better. Then, whenever there was trouble, he would go to the cemetery, and almost every time he found signs that someone else was visiting the place. But usually these visits were not tied to a specific date. And only the last day of August had symbolic meaning for him. It was the day Cindy had died in such a tragic accident. From the city to the graveyard was about 3 kilometers, and this distance is difficult to cover on foot. So William decided to go to the cemetery by car. He was walking along a familiar path, and from afar he noticed two figures. At first, he wanted to turn back, but curiosity got the better of him. The man added a step, and after a few seconds, in one of the visitors, he recognized the girl Kate, who had come several times to the hospital square with flowers. With her was an unfamiliar young woman, her head covered with a black shawl. Kate waved her arms joyfully and shouted loudly to Dr. William, "It's great to see you." The woman eyed him suspiciously and yanked the girl Kate. "You can't yell loudly in a cemetery." The girl hummed and under his nose. But then she couldn't hear anything anymore. The aunt did not have time to reprimand her before she turned her attention to her acquaintance. "Aunt Jenna, remember I told you about him?" The girl nodded at William. "And you didn't believe me that I was friends with a real doctor. And you scolded me for taking money from strange men." William decided it was time for him to intervene. "I'm sorry to barge in so unexpectedly. I'm sorry, I don't know your middle name." The woman looked him straight in the eye, and the look sent shivers down William's spine. She guessed she made a strong impression on the stranger. "Yes, Cindy and I are not sisters, but we are very much alike. I'm 3 years younger than she is, but that age difference didn't stop us from being very close. You can just call her Jenna." William couldn't take his eyes off the woman's face. He thought that artists painted portraits of people like Jenna, and her correct facial features and the velvet of her peach-tinged skin gave her appearance a special sophistication. The man couldn't help himself. Very much alike indeed. Jenna smiled bitterly. Only my little sister didn't live to be my age. Very desperate, she was ready. She was fire and water. She told me all about you, but Mom didn't know. William sighed heavily. Unfortunately, Cindy never told me anything about her family. She was shy. She wanted to live a wealthy life, but it didn't work out. Jenna looked at Kate. "I guess Cindy didn't tell you anything about her daughter either." Kate looked at him and smiled. And then he realized what had surprised him for the first time about the girl's appearance. Her eyes were exactly like her mother's eyes, or rather, the way she squinted. "So Kate is Cindy's daughter. Then why didn't she tell me anything about her? Don't you get it? She was afraid of losing you. I remember the night before she left, she called me for advice. I told her to tell me the truth, but she said she'd rather tell me about her daughter later." Kate was just over 2 years old at the time. "And when Cindy had her accident, my mom told me to get custody. And they still wouldn't let me because of her heart condition." Jenna placed flowers on the graves of her mother and sister. "I've told you all about our troubles. It's just Katya and me now. We wanted to put better monuments on these ones, but we barely scraped it together. There's no one to help us. We don't ask for help." Kate forgot her shyness. The girl felt that the person her aunt was talking to was trustworthy. She approached William and confidently put her small hand in his big hand. "Doctor, you're going to be friends with me." The man squatted down and looked the little girl in the eyes. "I will, but let's make a deal that you won't go to the park with the basket anymore." Kate waved her hands. "I haven't gone that way for a long time because Aunt Jenna scolded me a lot. And the daisies were blooming. Now we have to wait for summer." They walked together to the road, and William finally decided to ask the question that had been on his mind the most. "Kate's father, who is he?" Jenna was silent for a long time, but then she whispered, "I'll tell you, but not now." "Okay, I don't want to traumatize the child." William felt awkward. "Don't think I'm obscenely nosy. Just a normal father. Even if things didn't work out with his mother, he's obligated to take care of his child." Unfortunately, fathers like that are rare. Kate was very unlucky in that regard. They got to his car and William offered them a ride into town, but Jenna declined. "Thank you, but we're close. We don't really live in the city. There's an old lady I know lives in a village just down the road. Kate and I help her. It's potato harvest time." Yes, Kate has to get ready for school. They walked on, holding hands, and he looked after them and thought how much I'd like to make them happy. Maybe then I'd get a real taste of life myself. That encounter in the cemetery completely changed Dr. William's mind. The two silhouettes on the road became a haunting vision. For several days, William tried to get rid of it, but then realized that his efforts were pointless. "I guess it's all from homesickness." Why hadn't I thought to ask for a phone number or address? It's been a terrible week, for another word. William couldn't have chosen another word for it. Not only were the patients flooding in, but Michael was trying his best to ruin his life. William didn't pay much attention to gossip, but even Wendy couldn't take it anymore. You know, William, I'm amazed at your restraint. If I were a man and heard only half of the gossip Michael's been spreading around here, I'd punch him in the face. William looked at her absent-mindedly at Wendy. First of all, I don't give a damn what he says. The people who know me, they won't believe a word he says. What about the rest of you? It's very foolish to believe a man's tales when you don't know him. And secondly, I could punch him in the face, but what difference would it make? It'd give me new food for gossip? No, I'm not comfortable with that. And besides, what he says to me is neither hot nor cold. But you had to talk to your ex, or rather, failed friend. William was on another 24-hour shift. His strength was running out, because the autumn colds had knocked down half of the department, and he had to work 24 hours a day. Maria, who was still holding on, joined him. That he was unspeakably glad. The girl, though, had behaved as if it was not so, but lately almost came together. Apparently, because of fatigue, there was no strength for all sorts of unnecessary curtsies. After evening rounds, he realized that no one had been admitted for the last 2 hours. And that meant that there was time to drink tea, and he didn't want to drink tea alone. So he looked in on his sister. Maria, aren't you busy? The girl looked at him fearfully. No. Why did you bring someone? No, thank God. I wanted to invite you for a cup of tea while I have a minute to spare. It's a bit boring on your own. Maria shook her head desperately. No, William, no way. He was very surprised by that reaction. William went all in like that. From here on out, I would take offense to something. Or do you still take offense at that remark made in the ward? No, not at all. That remark was made on business, and it was just a girl giving him the eye. You see, it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. And I'm gonna have to get married someday. How am I supposed to do that when the whole hospital in town is talking about our affair? It's gotten to the point where people think I'm a totally bad nurse. I'm only here because I'm sleeping with you. And I'm sleeping with you because you're about to take over as superintendent. Tears came to the girl's eyes. William asked confusedly, I don't understand. What is this nonsense? He asked. And then he answered, You don't mean to say that Michael did his best even here, do you? Maria just nodded. I tried to talk to him, and he laughs in my face and tells me to stay out of the way. William shook his head thoughtfully. Yes, I guess I'll have to talk to him after all. Maria, let's go and have some tea. You have nothing to be afraid of now. And the girl suddenly smiled. All right, I'll just take the cakes. My mom always gives me so many things to take with me. I can't eat that much. They stayed at the residency until 300, until they were called to the waiting room. In the morning, when William changed shifts and left the hospital, he immediately noticed Michael. He was standing next to Wendy and was furiously arguing with her, not letting her get a word in edgewise. William headed toward them. Wendy saw him first and breathed a sigh of relief. Michael, on the other hand, was not happy but held his nerve. My God, how is it that a man who's used to sucking up to everyone behind their backs is paying attention to us? William grimaced. He stopped. Michael, don't you think you're out of line? It's one thing for your gossip to concern me. But why bring outsiders in here? What did Jenna say? She'll get over it. William, I realized it was useless to explain anything to this man. He swung around and punched him in the jaw. The hospital courtyard was pretty crowded. Some were rushing to their shifts, some had gotten off work after the night before. There was a car not too far away and beside it. Andrew was reprimanding the driver for something. Everything was silent for a moment. And in that silence, the voice of the chief mechanic came through. Nice shot. But it could have used a little more kick. Wendy smiled contentedly. Thank you, William. You've saved me a lot of unpleasant speeches. William nodded and headed home. Right now, he had only one wild desire to fall asleep. He didn't even listen to what Michael was shouting after him, what he was threatening or promising. It was not interesting. Another week passed, and the employees finally began to return from sick leave, as Wendy joked. Finally, the fall adjustment was over. Now it was time to breathe. It had already been announced that William was the head of the department and Wendy the nurse. The fate of Michael was known. Everyone absolutely thought that he would not stay in the hospital, especially since he had such a hairy arm. But just before the meeting, there was a rumor that it was his hairy arm that was asked out of work. And now Michael was left without a patron. He was left in the hospital as an ordinary doctor. True, evil or fair tongues said that it will not last long. Ethan was very zealous in monitoring the quality of treatment. He even went to the wards to talk to patients. Before the end of the day, Wendy sighed. "Well, William, where shall we take our colleagues? He didn't know what you meant at first. That's what I thought. You're always thinking about work, as usual. What about the rule about celebrating a new position? If anything, everyone who isn't on shift is already waiting for us there." William slapped himself on the forehead. "Yeah, really earned it. Why do I get the day off tomorrow? Wendy, do you have any thoughts?" "Yes, of course, I know a very nice, and most importantly inexpensive cafe on the seafront we can fit in there." William nodded. "That's fine. Walking then." She sighed again. "Walking. Where can I go? There's not jam waiting for me at home. There's jam." William saw Jenna as soon as he entered the cafe. She was sort of the receptionist. And when she saw him, she was terribly embarrassed and made excuses. "We don't have enough for everything, so I work part-time." To be honest, William was confused himself. He had imagined their meeting so many times, but now he didn't know what to say, so he just said, "I'm very happy to meet you." The young woman smiled. "I'm told you have an event today. Congratulations on your promotion." "Thank you, Jenna. I have to go to my coworkers. Promise we'll talk again." She nodded and gave him a sidelong glance. William moved toward the table from which he had long been called. Wendy asked in surprise, "Do you know Jenna?" "Yes, just a little." "Do you know her too?" "Sure, she works at our post office. She's a nice girl." True, her fate is not easy, I think. In one moment lost both her sister and her mother, and now she has her sister's daughter on her hands. But she did not embittered, did not despair. Always a friendly, smiling face. Wendy suddenly looked at him intently. "William, you are not married, are you?" He looked at his colleague in surprise. "What's your point?" Did the woman smile? No, I was just clarifying." Jenna left without saying goodbye. William was so engrossed in an argument about the new ultrasound machines that he didn't notice that she stopped appearing in the hall. When they went home, Jenna was gone. Not to show how upset he was. William quickly said goodbye to everyone and headed for home. Favor from the waterfront to the house, no more than 5 minutes from the fatigue of drinking. Gave of themselves. That evening, William fell asleep. Not even turning on the TV. To be honest, Jenna was never out of his head. After cautiously finding out where Wendy lived, he decided to go to the post office. Well, if she won't give you a phone number, she won't. But it's worth a shot. He saw Kate outside the post office. "Hi, Kate." The girl had a big smile on her face. "Hello, doctor. What are you doing here?" "What about you?" "I asked you first, but I'll tell you. I'm waiting for Aunt Jenna. We're going to the store with her to get a cake. It's Uncle Jenna's birthday today." William looked back at the post office door. "Kate, can you help me?" The girl's eyes rounded because William was speaking in a whisper. "Of course. What do you need to do?" "I want to congratulate your aunt too, but in a way that it's a surprise. Tell me your address. I'll buy flowers and come. Just don't say anything to Aunt Ira." Kate clapped her hands. "Good, that would be so nice. We always celebrate all the holidays just the two of us." Kate not only said the address, but also explained in detail how to find their house. Before the meeting, Kate looked up. Kate smiled in no uncertain terms. William stopped the car in front of a flower store. "Okay, I have absolutely no idea what kind of flowers Jenna might like. Well then, let's go classic." He walked into the store. The saleswoman, a woman of about 35, gave him a lazy glance and stared at her phone again. "Yeah, it's not much of a set, girl. I would like Rose's woman still the same. Not in a hurry." Stood up, went to the refrigerator, opened the door. "Which ones do you want?" William looked into the refrigerator. Yes, the selection wasn't very good. But then he noticed the huge white roses that had been picked more than once. These you can have, these you can't. They're for another store tonight. I'll print them out for you. You buy 3 roses. Where are the rest of them going? We don't take such expensive flowers. William smiled broadly, and I'll take everything. The woman almost dropped the phone. Is it all wrapped up or what? Exactly, only be kind enough to buy them nicely. Apparently, the seller's salary still somehow depended on sales, because the woman visibly accelerated and cheered. She instantly made a huge flat area out of roses, wrapped herself in a net, and said she must love someone. William didn't bother with reasoning and explanations, just miscalculated and walked out. The bouquet came out to a little less than his monthly salary, but it didn't matter. William ate in the hospital canteen, and at home he had sandwiches, because he didn't like to cook, so the money was saving up on its own. And where would he spend it? He hadn't thought of it yet, put the flowers in the car, and wanted to get in. But then a grocery store caught his eye. It's a walk. Jenna would definitely be home by now. He bought some candy and a bottle of expensive wine. He thought about it and scooped more ice cream. The door opened almost immediately. He saw Irina's surprised eyes. Hello, Jenna. I thought I'd drop by and wish you a happy birthday. Don't push it. She turned around in the apartment, then smiled. I'm sensing my niece was involved. Come in. He stepped with some trepidation into the apartment. He'd been so reluctant to enter. Cindy. The apartment was plain, unpretentious, rather too modest. William saw Kate, who was diligently cutting a loaf. She was so excited. Hello. I thought you'd changed your mind. How could I? Jenna gave Kate a fist bump, and William handed her a bouquet. There's that Kate jumping around. Finally, we're going to have a real party. Kate, behave yourself. The woman turned to William. This bouquet is worth it. It didn't cost a lot of money. William smiled. I just didn't know what kind of flowers you liked, so I thought I'd impress you with the quantity. She laughed. Did you succeed? Doubly so. I'm very fond of white roses. Cindy liked simple flowers, but I only like roses. Excuse me, I'll open the desk. The next 2 hours were probably the easiest and most fun William had had in years. They chatted about things, even argued, listened to Kate and school stories, told their own. Then Kate started to peck her nose. Jenna got up. Kate, why don't you go to bed? William got up too. I didn't want to leave. Scared? I guess it's time. William, if you'll wait a little while, we'll have tea on the road. You can put the kettle on in the meantime. For some reason, it's all singing inside. What could it be? And Irina didn't want him to go. They sat in the kitchen for a few more hours. Then he got up regretfully. You know, Jenna, I had a very wonderful evening tonight. I haven't had one in a long time. She smiled. It was a pleasure talking to you too. They were already walking toward the door. William turned around, saw her eyes, and couldn't help himself. He pulled her to him and kissed her. Jenna at first jerked to pull away, but then nudged back and returned the kiss. Jenna, maybe. She desperately shook her head. No, I can't. And I'm going to ask you very nicely not to show up at our house again. And not to meet at all. But why? What did I do wrong? Jenna looked up at him with eyes dark with resentment. You've robbed me of my sister and my mother. Go away and never come again. And William had no time to answer before she literally pushed him out the door and slammed it shut. He honestly didn't understand a thing. All he realized was that Jenna blamed him for everything. Well, so did his fiancée's mom. She said that if he hadn't gotten in her daughter's way, Cindy would still be alive. That's a fantastical claim. But there was no use changing the woman's mind. Nor would he. Let her blame him if it made her feel any better. But Jenna, she's a grown woman. How can you do all this? All right, we'll talk about it later. But we didn't. He'd waited for Wendy at the post office several times, but she'd been stone-faced and passed by without responding. William became the most regular customer at the cafe where Jenna worked part-time. But after a week, she disappeared. The waiter said she quit. He was ashamed. Because of him, the women had lost the extra income they needed. William decided he wasn't going to try to talk to her anymore. Deciding with his head was one thing, but his soul went crazy. It sang and it wept, but it didn't want to live like it used to. And then William decided that he would simply fill himself with work, so that there were no thoughts that prevented a quiet life. 2 weeks into the race, his mother called. "Hey son, how are you?" "You haven't called at all." "What's wrong?" "Nothing, Mom, I'm sorry. I've been working a lot." "So what's with the voice? What's with the voice?" William defiantly coughed. How Mom always manages to tell his mood from 2 words. She should be a psychologist, and she's been a paramedic for so long. "William, you know your little tricks don't work on me. Are you finally in love?" And William suddenly realized that he was in love. Only he'd been rejected. "Mom, you can't hide anything. It's so complicated. You're scaring me." "How can love be complicated?" "Oh, have you fallen in love with a married woman?" "William, must you forget her?" "No, Mother." "What a married woman?" "I met Cindy's sister in the cemetery." "Didn't you say she had a sister, Mama?" "I didn't know it myself. Not just a sister, but a mother and even a daughter." "That's a good start. I take it it's this sister." "But what's the matter? Why such a sad voice?" "Mom, you know, right after Cindy's funeral, her mother died. Her heart gave out. Jenna is the guardian of Cindy's daughter, and she blames me for Cindy and her mother's death. But that's ridiculous." "I know, Mom, but Jenna won't listen." There was silence on the phone. Then we asked, "What do you intend to do?" "I don't know yet, but I think nothing." The mother only sighed. They talked some more and said goodbye. William leaned back on the pillow, picked up the remote control. "Hello again, my friend." He didn't notice that he had dozed off. He was awakened by a phone call. "Hello, William." He recognized the voice of the doctor who worked in his department. "Yes, I'm listening." "James, what's wrong?" "I'm so sorry, but we have a situation. We've got a little girl in the pediatric ward who needs emergency surgery. She had a very bad fall, a scooter. They kept her in the pediatric ward all night, but they didn't decide to take her on. It's been too long. It's too late to send her somewhere else. If anyone can help, it's you guys who are crazy. How can you do that? Holding a baby for so long. I'll put you on speaker, and you tell me everything while I get dressed." William was getting dressed while the doctor was talking about the trauma. "The girl's unconscious. Vital signs are deteriorating. Please hurry. Prep the OR, get everyone you can find up here." "Okay, sighs." James was still on, and William could hear him giving commands. "Prep the OR, calm down, please, this doctor. He better help. He'll do everything possible and impossible." The first person William saw when he ran into the hospital was a crying Jenna. He rushed over to her. Jenna, is that Kate?" She nodded and sobbed. William turned to the nurse. Maria quickly sedated, and 2 more doctors were already changing into the resident behind me. "Thank you, colleagues, for being able to make it." As they walked toward the operating room, William could see that the entire department was awake. Patients were standing in the corridor, everyone was looking at them, and some old lady even crossed them with "God, save the babies." The operation lasted more than 4 o'clock. Everyone worked in silence, only occasionally saying something on the job. When it became clear that things were not going well, William raised the hands of his colleagues for a moment of attention. "I suggest," he explained what he wanted to do. One of the surgeons shook his head in a very risky way. The other objected, "But this way she just doesn't stand a chance. It's a waste of time." The others nodded. "It's your call, William." He knew what he was getting into. An old surgeon taught him the technique and said it works 1 in 10 times. You can only use it when. There's no other option. No one's ever used it on kids. An hour later, they came out of the operating room. The doctors were talking loudly. Someone said, "No, you'll see it's dawn outside." All the patients have been walking the halls since the evening. "William, what kind of mess is this on your ward?" "William, the same one that's in your ward." "Oh, I forgot. We work in the same one." No one asked anything. Everything was clear. The patients smiled and went to their rooms. It had been a busy night. Everyone could see how fast the nurses were running and how many doctors were going into surgery. William stopped at the nurse's station. Where's the girl's aunt? Oh, William, when you've been in there for a couple hours, she got so hysterical. And then she just passed out. We bring her back to consciousness, and she just slams again. So we gave her a horse sedative. She's sleeping in room 3 now. It's clear. Thank you. He went to room 3. Entered the light. Turned on. Did not become already enough light was from the window, the power, the bed. Took Irina's hand in his and thought about why life is so strangely arranged. As if it keeps throwing him back, but not in the same place, as if on a neighboring spiral. Maybe it gives him an opportunity to right his wrongs. Jenna opened her eyes and tried to sit up abruptly, but William managed to hold her back. Don't make any sudden movements. You can't do that now. He helped her to sit up carefully. Jenna immediately asked how she was. William smiled. It was a bit of a struggle. Kate has a way of falling. So the whole hospital was on its feet for hours, but it's gonna be okay. She may have to spend a couple months in the hospital, but I'm sure she'll be fine. Jenna looked at him for a long time. Thank you. Life is a strange thing. You took 2 family members from me and saved one. William stood up and went to the window. Jenna, can I ask you a question? Yes. What makes you think I'm responsible for Cindy's death? Well, like my mom told me. You were on the beach. You didn't even try to save your fiancé. You just watched the whole thing quietly. William closed his eyes. Read to 10. You're a grown, intelligent woman. Couldn't you just open the internet and read all about that tragedy? He went to the door, stopped. 4 days. Kate will be with us as soon as she can be transferred. The girl will move to the children's hospital. He walked out and closed the door behind him. Jenna silently reached for her phone to type a request to the internet. It had been several days since the scandal William had caused. A check had been sent to the children's hospital. Wendy sighed and said you'll have to keep the little patient with you for now. Let them shake things up a bit, then you can transfer her. Okay, Wendy, I'll have to tell the girls to check on her more often. He left the office and a nurse came running to him. Katie's awake and talking. That's great news. He quickly went to the ward, and the nurse who tried to say that there was an aunt because she did not give her life. And the one who'd ordered her in waved her hand. He'll see for himself. But Kate, how are you? Did the girl have a weak smile? I don't know. While William was going over all the vitals and labs, I'll tell you, Kate's doing just fine. You'll be running and scooting again soon. No, I don't want to ride a scooter anymore. But it's just for now. And then it'll all blow over. Eat well now, eat well and sleep a lot. Then you'll get better faster. He got up already and only then noticed Wendy. William, wait, the man froze. I need to talk to you. He looked at Kate, then nodded. Okay, let's go. They walked out into the hallway, then outside. I'm listening. Jenna changed for a long time. Then she said, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I never thought to question my mom's words. And then I didn't care at all. Yes, your apology is accepted. William's up. Jenna did too. She looked into his eyes, and you're not going to say anything else. You're just going to walk away. He stood silently. Of course he wanted to speak. He wanted to literally yell, how stupid are you? Can't you see I can't live without you? But what kept him from doing it? Stupid hurt pride, I guess. Tears came from Jenna's eyes. She backed off. I'm sorry. William, I wanted to cry myself. Son, if you were a little less than a year old and you had to take off your belt, would you do that? A woman cries and he doesn't care. William flinched when he heard his father's voice and then saw him and his mother. Where are you from? We're from over there. Let's introduce ourselves. I take it this is Jenna. Jenna wiped away her tears and looked at William's parents with equal surprise. Yes, I'm Jenna. Molly took Jenna's hand affectionately. I'm the mother of that brat who made you cry. Don't worry, we'll raise him. Yes, father, of course. There's nothing to think about. Well, hello, son. You've forgotten all about your parents. Mother's ears are buzzing. Our William is not well. There's no one to support our William. My parents were gone for 2 weeks. Molly's been missing with Jenna at Kate's hospital. Dad was tailing William. Look, I thought going to that cold hospital was your thing. Now I realize you found your place. That's what everyone here says about you. I'm proud of you, son. You've accomplished what your mother and I only dreamed of." William smiled. "Thank you, Dad." But Thomas immediately turned serious and raw. "It's for nothing. She's as good as your Linda, though they don't speak ill of the dead." William sighed. Cindy wasn't bad. It was just the way she behaved. In fact, she'd come here to earn money for her mother's surgery. His father was silent for a moment, then looked at him. "So what do you intend to do?" "My mother and I are leaving soon, and we don't know whether to get ready for the wedding and grandchildren or nothing again." William looked at his father cheerfully. He really is a father. What's the holdup? The staff watched with interest as a procession of people marched into Kate's room, led by William, followed by his mother and father. The ward manager had flowers in his hands. Only a lazy man did not know what passions were going on between him and the aunt of the little patient. Andrew, who on some business came into the department, sighed, and another one was lost. "Went to surrender our doctor." True, the wedding had to be postponed because Kate would not yet be able to attend. But everyone agreed that Kate should be the most important bridesmaid. "So what? I'm gonna have Kate as my grandparents now. And not just grandparents, but actual parents. But you don't forget about your mom either, of course." Kate squeezed his hand. "The best doctor in the world. It's a good thing I met you then." Jenna and William looked at each other, smiled. "It turns out we owe our happiness to you."